Every night, billions of people lie down on soft mattresses without thinking about it for even a second. But for most of human history, this simple act did not exist, and sleep was not something connected to comfort, but something tied directly to survival. Because early humans had no beds, no pillows, no mattresses, and no concept of a designed place to rest, and instead, sleep was a dangerous interruption in a world filled with predators, cold nights, uncertain weather, and constant survival pressure, where every moment of rest could turn into a moment of vulnerability. And this is why the history of sleep is not actually a story about comfort, but a story about how humans slowly learned to survive the night. And as we go back to the beginning, we enter a time where sleeping meant simply stopping movement wherever safety could be found, even if that place was cold ground, sharp stones, or unstable natural terrain. In the earliest phase of human existence, there were no permanent homes or structured shelters, and humans lived entirely exposed to natural environments where sleeping directly on the ground was the only option available, and this ground sleeping was far from peaceful because it meant direct contact with cold earth, insects, moisture, and hidden dangers, while predators often roamed nearby, making sleep extremely light and fragmented, and humans had to remain semi-aware even while resting, which meant deep sleep was rare, and survival instincts dominated every moment of the night. And to reduce discomfort, they would gather whatever natural materials were available, such as dry grass, leaves, and animal skins, to place under their bodies, creating the earliest form of insulation. But even this did not remove danger, it only slightly reduced discomfort, and as human groups slowly grew larger, they began to realize that sleeping randomly in open areas was not sustainable, and this realization pushed them toward safer, elevated environments, which changed everything. That search for safety led early humans to one of the most surprising sleeping solutions in history: trees. Because sleeping on branches provided elevation away from ground predators and gave a sense of security that open land could not offer, and early humans and their ancestors likely constructed simple nests using twigs, leaves, and natural fibers, similar to modern primates, creating temporary sleeping platforms that were rebuilt every night and abandoned in the morning. And while this method improved safety, it introduced new challenges, because sleeping high in trees meant instability, exposure to weather conditions, and risk of falling during rest, which made sleep lighter and less restorative. But despite these limitations, it remained a crucial survival strategy, and this phase reveals something important about early humans. They were constantly experimenting with their environment to find better ways to rest and survive, and this experimentation eventually brought them down from trees into more stable environments on the ground. As human survival strategies evolved, they began settling into caves and natural rock, shelters that offered protection from both weather and predators, and this marked a major shift because caves provided stable, controlled environments where humans could remain in one location for longer periods of time. And within these caves, they began organizing specific areas for sleeping using animal hides, grass, and layered natural materials to create softer resting surfaces, and fire became a central part of nighttime survival, not only providing warmth but also acting as protection against animals, making sleep slightly safer and more stable than before. And for the first time in human history, sleep was not just about finding any safe spot, but about improving comfort within a controlled environment, and this change slowly pushed humans toward the idea that sleep itself could be improved rather than just endured. This growing awareness of comfort led humans to experiment with softer materials and layered surfaces, as they discovered that placing materials like dried grass, animal fur, feathers, and woven natural fibers under the body significantly reduced discomfort and improved rest quality. And this was a major turning point, because humans were now actively designing their sleeping experience instead of simply reacting to environmental conditions, and this idea of separating the body from the hard ground became one of the earliest foundations of bedding. But even these improvements lacked structure and permanence, because materials had to be gathered repeatedly and rearranged constantly, and this limitation created the need for more stable and consistent sleeping arrangements, which eventually led to the invention of raised sleeping platforms. As settlements developed and human communities became more organized, people began constructing raised sleeping structures using wood, stone, or layered natural materials to lift the body above the ground, and this innovation solved multiple problems at once, including protection from insects, moisture, and cold surfaces, while also improving hygiene and comfort. And for the first time, sleep was no longer directly tied to the ground, and this separation represented a major psychological and physical shift in human life, because it introduced the idea that sleep could be intentionally designed and structured. And these early raised platforms became the foundation of future bed design. But the Transformation did not stop here because as civilizations expanded, these structures began evolving into more refined and culturally significant forms. In ancient Egypt, sleep reached a completely new level of sophistication because here, we see the first true beds that resemble modern structures where wooden frames were built to elevate the body above the ground and woven materials or cushions were placed on top to provide comfort and support, and for wealthy individuals, these beds were not just functional objects but symbols of status and luxury, often decorated with detailed craftsmanship, while common people used simpler versions, made from basic materials, and instead of soft pillows, Egyptians used wooden or stone headrests designed to keep the head elevated, which was believed to promote health and even spiritual protection, and this shows that sleep was no longer just a physical need but also a cultural and symbolic practice, and as these ideas spread across regions, they influenced other civilizations in different ways. In Mesopotamia, sleeping structures became more advanced as wooden bed frames combined with woven surfaces created flexible sleeping platforms that improved comfort and durability, and these beds were often placed inside designated areas within homes, marking one of the earliest distinctions between sleeping spaces and living spaces, and the introduction of textiles, such as wool and woven fabrics, further improved warmth and softness, while trade networks allowed new materials to spread across regions, and this era represents a critical stage, where sleep began transitioning from basic survival practice into structured daily life, and as civilizations continued interacting, these innovations spread widely, influencing the development of sleeping culture across different societies. In ancient Greece and Rome, beds became deeply integrated into lifestyle and culture, where sleeping was no longer the only purpose of beds, because in Roman society, reclining furniture was used not only for rest, but also for dining and social interaction, and beds were constructed using wood and metal frames with cushions and textiles added for comfort, while mattresses filled with straw, feathers, or wool provided additional softness. And although comfort improved significantly compared to earlier civilizations, challenges related to hygiene and sanitation still existed, and as empires expanded and later declined, many of these advancements were disrupted or lost, showing that technological progress is often fragile and dependent on stable societies. During the medieval period, sleeping conditions changed again as large wooden beds became common among wealthy households, often enclosed with heavy curtains to retain warmth and provide privacy in cold and drafty environments, while mattresses were filled with straw or wool, depending on social status. But for most ordinary people, sleeping conditions remained basic, with many still using simple surfaces or shared spaces due to limited resources and harsh living conditions, and this period clearly reflects how sleep quality was strongly influenced by social hierarchy and environmental limitations. But as time progressed, new technological and industrial changes began reshaping sleeping systems once again. With the rise of industrial development, beds began transforming rapidly into standardized and more comfortable designs as improved woodworking techniques, metal springs, and advanced textile production introduced new levels of comfort and accessibility, and mattresses evolved from simple natural fillings into engineered structures designed to support the body properly, while sleep itself became recognized as essential for health, productivity, and mental well-being. In this period marked the transition of beds from luxury items to everyday necessities, accessible to wider populations, and as scientific understanding of sleep improved, further innovations continued to refine comfort and design. Today, modern beds represent the final stage of this long evolutionary journey, combining centuries of innovation into a single experience where sleep is safe, comfortable, and highly optimized through advanced materials and design. And beneath this simple daily routine lies a hidden history of human survival, adaptation, and creativity that transformed sleep from a dangerous necessity into one of the most comfortable experiences in modern life. And when we look back across this entire journey, from sleeping on trees and cold ground to carefully engineered modern beds, it becomes clear that sleep is not just rest, but a reflection of human evolution itself, and every improvement in how we sleep represents another step forward in how humanity learned to survive, adapt, and eventually master its environment.